Hello everyone, welcome to This Week in Tyranny. My name is Konrad Rogoz. I'm very happy to welcome you back to this show. It's show 128. Today is Sunday, May 18th of 2025. And on episode 128, yes, that is the correct date, we're going to keep it simple. I always switch things up, it seems, show to show. So this is really a freestyle type of show. I've saw a couple of articles. I'm just going to go right through it. And this is not just a haphazard thing that I'm doing. It's actually a directed effort to do less with this show. I'm trying to do a less is more type of a thing. These end up being hour-long shows that are about all sorts of different topics, whether it's one topic, whether it's many. And it really goes very deep. I tend to go not off the rails, but go really deeper than it needs to be. So I'm gonna try to settle down and just give you the straight breakdown that you could share with your friends and family, because this is what is important. Those of you guys that know me, you know what I'm about, you know what I stand for. This is sort of more of an effort to reach out wider beyond a community of alternative research and truth seekers, whatever you want to call us. So with that said, first story I want to touch is the New Jersey train engineers strike. Another strike, right? We had the ports, the Atlantic ports a while ago. The issue of strikes comes up again and again. Now, what jumps out at me about strikes occurring more and more often is this kind of takeaway that you can't help but reach, that you're better off in the private sector. You know, you're better off trusting a business, trusting an organization that has nothing to do with government, whether it's government protections, whether it's government regulations, right? So in my line of work, I do construction. We're not a union, so everybody's really it's very freelance. You got your subcontractors, we make contracts. Everybody has a contract, everybody has it listed what they will do, what kind of business they will do. And it's that's the easy part about working for yourself. Now the hard part is dealing with the day-to-day, all the issues, dealing with all the people. Of course, that is the lucrative thing about being in a union. If you're working in a union, you don't have to worry about all of this stuff, all of these ancillary things. You just show up, you go to work from this time to this time, and you have all these laws and protections, and you can just do your job, and that's it. Now, of course, the unions themselves, they get so powerful now. They get so powerful, the union leaders, the organizers. There's a hierarchy within the union. And it's very interesting. What ends up happening is everything that the unions were brought up to fight, which is this idea of the owner, the boss, conspiring to exploit the workers, to use them as pawns and to just reap benefits from them. Well, that kind of a hierarchy, that kind of a oppressed dynamic, it is just transferred to the union, where it seems like the union is for the workers, but really it's more so for the people at the top. And the people who are on this strike, the people who you see there with the signs, the people who are not working right currently, they're the ones being used as pawns by these people, by these interests. Now, when you get high enough in the levels of any kind of a business union, whether it's electrical, the train engineers, any kind of union, those guys are so far detached from the day-to-day worker. They might carry a hammer with them, but they have nothing to do with the day-to-day worker. They're a lot more like the boss. And what ends up happening is the same thing, is that the common man is used as a pawn. The everyday man and woman and child is used as a pawn in the interest of people that are playing games. They're playing business games with each other. And unions, I treat the same way as government, in the sense that I just don't trust them, because they do use people as pawns, and there's no reason for me to believe they're out for our interests. They're out for their own interests. So we should be out for our own interests as well. And I've said this before when you talk about collective bargaining, this idea that a group of employees, all of the employees as an entity, can negotiate with the boss. This is what we want, this is what we will accept, this is what we won't accept. Now, of course, everybody knows that bumper sticker that says the workers' unions, the people who brought you the weekend. Meaning that without collective, the idea behind it is that if it wasn't for collective bargaining and unions, then you would be forced to work basically the whole week. You wouldn't have 40-hour weeks. You wouldn't have all of these better working conditions if they weren't fought for. Now, I agree that working conditions and just things that people deserve need to be fought for. But when it's done in the form of collective bargaining, essentially it is just like blackmailing the employer, which so of course if he's not treating the workers right, then maybe he should be blackmailed. My point is, I see individual bargaining as being the true path, the path to truly get what you want. And this is what happens in my business. Everybody is their own union. Every contractor will bargain with you. He will give their price. If there's some issue to settle, then they settle the issue, and it's limited to that individual interaction. Now, when you try to throw a blanket over all of the workers, hundreds, thousands, and millions of people, then it's just collective bargaining. Well, it may be good for some, but it won't be good for all. So somebody always loses out on that. And when you group people into these big swaths of people and treat them as a unit, collectivism is never good for the individual. And using people as pawns on a chessboard, this is not something that is good for any of these workers. And now these people won't be able to drive to be on those trains, the passengers, right? Because this is not just freight transit. This is like, like metro transit, like public transit. And so again, you're better off trusting somebody who is working for themselves. That's just economics, the way I see it, because they're not using people as pawns. They have their chess piece is a king and a queen. That they can't afford to lose those. So nobody's going to be sacrificing pawns, because the life should not be a dynamic where we have to sacrifice people. Life is precious. We shouldn't be sacrificing anybody. So that's all I'll say about that story, and I'll move on to the next. I saw a few articles, AI related, artificial intelligence related, something that was like AGI. Sam Altman, the CEO of OpenAI, he said, we'll have to build a bunker before we release AGI, which is artificial general intelligence. Artificial general intelligence is just artificial intelligence, but on a level where it's basically human level intelligence. That's the idea, that you could just turn it loose and it will solve all of these complicated problems. Also, I saw there's a endeavor. It's world.org. I'll read an article about it, actually. Let's go straight to that. Sam Altman's world. This is it. Sometimes things are just what they seem to be. So this is I threw this together, so sorry if I don't give the sources or really quote the authors. It's not to take any credit away from them, but I'm just gonna skim through this. This article points out that this world.org thing, this world is the name of it. It's called the World Join the Real Human Network. So what it really is about, as you can see in this article, is a blockchain-based biometric identity verification system. It's also a cryptocurrency project, formerly WorldCoin. This whole thing that integrates financial services, dating, gaming, betting platforms. And as you read further down, maybe with the goal of global wealth redistribution, eventually providing a universal basic income. And bottom line is you have this thing called an orb, which is like a ball, like that has a camera and it scans your face, and your face is the orb, which is like your biometric identity as opposed to AI. And then also you would have a world ID, which is universal. And the whole reason for this, the whole reason they do this world project that has been launched, is to get around that pesky AI takeover, AI flooding of the internet, which is supposed to be the reason that we have to do all of those, human verification things, the captcha boxes, when you go on a website and you have to click I am not a robot, or you have to move the puzzles around. It seems like there's so much of that's been around from the early days of the internet, but really it takes a lot of time, and it's so inconvenient to do those things. You almost would want to. It's just like the line at the airport, right? If there's an easy line where you have to get scanned or give some permission to to take your data, but you don't have to go through all of the where and all of the, how can I say, the hassle of being in line and jumping through all those hoops. Well, that's convenience, right? Convenience is the idea here. Now, not going to spend too much time on world, but that is just this month that comes out about Sam Altman. Of course, that article is not supporting that. No one is really supporting this kind of, when we talk about biometric ID, really this is coming from people like me who are sounding the alarm about it. There's not so much support. Oh yeah, biometric scanning is going to be great. Really, that's coming from the Trump administration a bit, right? From some of these companies, Palantir, from Elon Musk, from Sam Altman, and it's a very interesting switch, because most people don't support that, right? Like you think about what America was like 6 years ago, right? 4 years ago. There's not a lot of support for that. Now, again, I'm going to resist the urge to go really deep into this. AI, basically, the way I see it, is surveillance. It's monitoring human thoughts and behaviors. It's really a misnomer, artificial intelligence. It's more like record keeping. It's a chronicle of human thinking. And it's combining human thinking and recording it and making a database of it and finding patterns in human thinking to amplify it and increase it to such a level that it's more powerful than the thoughts of any one person. And that is why you have think tanks and brainstorming and organizations, because two minds are better than one, of course, right? Now, what about 10 million minds? Well, they're better than two minds, for sure, right? AI is just surveillance. It's just mathematics of thoughts. And this is like the classic question now with artificial intelligence is, nobody's asked this question, but for me, it's like, how do you balance what percentage of resources are going to go to monitoring human thinking, and what percentage of resources are going to go towards, actual ideas? So what I'm getting at is, when you get these big power plants, these huge electricity generation, all the electricity generation that's required to run these supercomputers and AI, you have all of this working just to power the computer. Not actually a power plant that's going to power, some kind of factory or building or windmill or anything like that, right? But it's just thinking about thinking. It's resources dedicated to increasing the artificial intelligence. Well, that is increasing, and at the same time as that's coming from Elon Musk, that's coming from Sam Altman, now there's also the pushback against it, where people are saying, hey, we got to do something about this. We got to have regulations on AI. We really got to be careful. We got to what are going to be the limits on that? It's the same thing in the economic sector they say about Bitcoin. It's like, hey, where are the limits going to be here? I understand that Bitcoin is becoming more and more valuable. Okay, it's increasing in value, but what if there's fraud? What if it's used for crimes A, B, and C? Right? I'm not saying that I'm saying that. I'm saying these are the points that are made. So it's this idea of, okay, where do we regulate it? Where do we stop it? How do we stop people from being exploited? How do we stop the person who's living 1,000 feet away from that big from that AI power generating station? How do we stop their lights from going out at night? Because all of the electricity, the whole power grid is being totally directed toward that endeavor. So you got one side and you got the other side. Even the Pope is talking about the dangers of artificial intelligence, right? Well, I would want to sound the alarm that I think the question of regulations here is a red herring. No matter what regulations they put on AI, it's not going to be good for the people. So this is me kind of sounding the alarm on the future before it happens, before we push back on artificial intelligence. When they do bring in these regulations, and it's going to look like the Donald Trump, Elon Musk, and Sam Altmans of the world lose. It's going to look like, hey, a few of these guys might even go to jail. And it's going to look like we've solved the problem of artificial intelligence. We've put the regulations on it. I'm not saying that will happen 100%, but I think it will. I don't think it's going to go uncontrolled, and I don't think AI is going to take over the world in the way that we think, not in the way that it seems now. But I think this kind of surveillance, the monitoring of human information, that's going to go on behind the scenes like it always has. It was just different before the printing press. It was different before the radio. It was different before the internet. It would just be different. But the surveillance of human thinking will continue. Because we, regular men and women, hey, going back to the first story, we're thought of as pawns. We're looked at like batteries to power this system. And all that's going to happen with these rules on AI is that those that are under the law, like us, like regular everyday people, we're just not going to get any of the benefits of technology, the benefits of artificial intelligence. And there are some benefits to that. I see it just the same as the gun issue and gun control. So you're still going to have guns, but the ownership, the capability of using that kind of tool set is going to be restricted and kept away from the common class. Now you could say, hey, we can own guns today. Well, yes, you have gun ownership in America, but you don't have a rocket launcher, you don't have a tank, you don't have any of this military-grade weaponry. My point being here is that your capabilities are not even on the same level. And I see the same thing that is going to happen with artificial intelligence. It's going to look like the threat is going to go away, but all that's going to happen is there's going to be a big technology gap. There already is a technology gap. There already is a knowledge gap, a power gap, a money gap. This is the whole idea, right? I'll close by saying this. Technology of all sorts allows for counter surveillance. You think about cameras, right? Well, all this camera surveillance, you can't get away with anything anymore. You could look at that as being something that's against the common people, right? But also you look at the same camera, and when you put those body cameras on the police officers, they act a lot different now. You don't have the kind of police brutality that could have happened before those cameras. It still happens, but the fact that you can point a camera and record, it's going to make a person treat you a lot differently if he has to worry about being put on the internet. So any kind of new set of features that goes into the world, it works both ways. It's the same thing with a gun. A gun allows someone to go in and rob you, which they wouldn't have been able to do so before. But also they have to think about, well, if their intended victim has a gun as well, well then now they have to be fearful of that. So when we're thinking about artificial intelligence, we're only seeing it from one direction, right? But if there are these regulations brought in on it, don't forget about the fact that they may still have this artificial intelligence. You may not see it, but those regulations are going to be on us. So we won't have the access to Chat GPT or whatever to ask, hey, what kind of, like to reveal even classified information, What were the movements of this political party and where are the whereabouts of this person? Meanwhile, they have it because it's so easy to make workarounds, considering the fact that the internet as a whole and Facebook have ties to military projects. So when you look at something that is as wide open as the internet, it may not be that wide open. You could have backdoors to everything. Think about hacking and what even hacking and cyber security, cyber attacks are. Well, you look at a lot of those cyber attacks and there's an overlap there with government and military intelligence. So I'll leave that there about AI and go into a much different topic that is about CRISPR. CRISPR is genetic therapy. And I saw a story about a little boy who received the first dose of a customized lipid nanoparticle delivered bespoke base editing therapy. In other words, he got actual genetic editing medicine, and he had a rare liver disease where his liver cannot process ammonia, and through this genetic editing, they corrected that genetic mutation, they changed it to how it should be, and he is now cured. This is the story. I haven't dove into it very deeply to know the details, but that's enough for me to tell you, and this is a big deal, right? This is a big deal for modern medicine. So he got this lipid nanoparticle delivered gene therapy by intravenous infusion between the age of 6 to 7 months. To maximize benefit while optimizing safety, 2 additional infusions were administered at rising doses at 7 and 8 months of age. So, full disclosure here, I've always, like with AI, right, I've sounded the alarm against genetic engineering, right, because this is a big danger in the present and the future of humanity. But when we talk about saving a baby's life, how could I say anything bad about saving a baby? So I won't even throw doubts or questions on whether this story is true, right? Whether this actually worked. Because we've seen that before, right? With medical miracles, that everybody wants a medical miracle to be true. I think we can all relate to that and accept that everybody wants this to be true, regardless of their interests are. I'm not even just thinking about money or anything like that, like just from the heart. Everybody would want to be part of this and say, yes, we succeeded, much more so than something like the moon landing, because it's very, we're talking about a baby here, but moms and babies are my concern precisely. Like that's kind of the heart of why I even do a show, and why I'm slowing down on the way I do it, because that's who I care about. That's who I want to reach, right? Like, maybe it's beside the point to just be talking to philosophers all day long, right? To just talking about philosophy, because this is very down to earth what I'm talking about. So I have to talk about the lipid nanoparticles because I've seen this before in a show about 2 months back about the dangers of lipid nanoparticles. So nothing against, right? Now we're leaving that story with the baby there. I wish him a long and healthy and happy life, right? Away from that, because I'm not saying that the story is a lie. I'm saying we got to look at that and take it at face value for what it is, but then see what are the potential misapplications of that in the future, because this can be misapplied. It's just like an application of justice. It's just like the use of technology. You may have to use weaponry one time and it'll be done in a way that is good. Same way with technology, you use it in a way that is good, but it can go totally out of control. And just because there are good things to be said for it doesn't mean we can ignore the bad. So here is an overview. Again, I'm sorry for not using the original publisher and creator of this information here, but this is from a Substack that I used before for a story about COVID vaccines, which I will touch on again. And this is an overview of the impact of lipid nanoparticle delivered substances to human male and female reproductive organs. Now, the overlap with vaccines is why I even mention it, because that's not what CRISPR is. But the new mRNA vaccines that have come out and are coming out use that lipid nanoparticle delivered deliveries, that system, okay, that platform to actually get the vaccine into the body is a lipid nanoparticle system. And that is the reason CRISPR uses it, because that is what has come out and can actually get the genetic material, or you could argue the semantics of whether mRNA is genetic material, whether the spike protein is genetic material. I'm not arguing semantics. I'm just saying this is what it is, and this is how you do it. And this image that I'm leaving on the screen as you are seeing this shows you the damage that can be done with this LNP delivery system, and specifically damage to the reproductive organs. So we're talking about exactly this: families, children, the same idea. So it's very important that we see both sides of it. Ironically, this is as my dad calls me. I have to talk to him after this. We're talking about families and children and reproduction, right? It even these injections that were given to the boy, to KJ, they even struck me like they're boosters. You had an original injection, and then he has to take another one, and then another one. But the way this is presented in the articles is that they just corrected a misspelling. It's seen as a misspelling. The genetic code is C. I don't want to miss. The base pairs of the nucleotides. I won't go into that. Biology was. I neglected a lot of biology. It was an interesting time for me. Since I mentioned it, I had a girlfriend that was really into CRISPR. Like, she told me this years and years ago, before I even knew what it is, and this is what she wanted to do. She wanted to be a biologist and go into this, and I didn't even know what it was. And she told me it was genetic. You could change the genetics, and I thought, cool. I of course saw it was like a wary cool, but it is something that's very interesting. And I'm not even opposed to changing genetic code in principle. I just want to do what's right for the kids. Like that's what it comes down to. So let me just take it back to further on in these things that come out about now in the Pfizer vaccine and the effects on reproduction. This is, I'm quoting here, an Israeli study later confirmed damage to sperm both in total numbers and mobility. And you see the citation there, right? So you could go into it. It bothers me that I have to stutter and watch what I say when I talk about the vaccine and talk about medicine, because of course the whole community guidelines thing, videos get taken down all the time for making all these claims, even if these claims are not actually wrong. Again, this is the thing about having a big collectivized general system. It's just like the unions again, right? You have a collective set of guidelines, and they're supposed to do a good thing, right? But of course it's going to be misapplied, misattributed. So I'm trying to say something that is true, but it's going to get flagged by these systems. And again, these are automatic systems, right? So this is just like the AI concerns all over again. And what ends up happening is the individual is hurt. The individual claims get lost. The real profound points that need to get made, a lot of the times they get thrown out because of one little thing that is said. And all that you have left are kind of the two violent sides and the general viewpoints, you know. And a lot of the real head of the spear type of cutting edge points, which science is all about, they get lost in that. They get swept up in it. So now let me just read this. The word temporarily in the title is misleading. What title? Well, COVID-19 vaccination temporarily impairs semen concentration and total motile count among semen donors. So these are a few of these studies about just the effect on reproductive potency in males due to the vaccines. The researchers assumed that sperm would recover after the 3-month study period, although they ended their observation at that time, and they did not show any evidence that sperm did actually recover, so their word temporarily is so far unverified. So you get that from further on as another concern about lipid nanoparticles and the effect on reproduction. I'm gonna leave that there because how do I really I'd rather just link it. How do I go into the scientific specifics? Again, I wanted to even avoid doing that, but you can do that, and you can trust it or not. You could check it out for yourself. But again, I want to keep this real down to earth. It's just the fact that medicine and vaccines, that subject has become so volatile. The fact that that is the case, it's very alarming to me, because I just want to talk about facts and I want to talk about reality. That's it. I don't care. It's not political for me. I just want the moms and the children to be healthy. I want a happy and healthy life for families. And there's nothing political about my approach. Like, I don't care what they believe, if they go to church or not. I wouldn't care what their diet choice is, or whatever helps them, if it's a herbal solution, if it's a herb or a shot. If it is genetic editing that helps them, if that is truly the case, I would support it. But I just pointed out a couple of things that don't support that. But again, the community guidelines are going to always be on the side of medicine. Everybody always sides with the experts and the medicine. But there's a long track record of... it's a dark track record for what goes on in medicine. And that's not against anybody individually within that. It's just like it's not against anybody that's in a union. But it's a collective, it's a hierarchy, and it's using a whole lot of people, doctors and patients, as pawns to get some type of a goal accomplished, to benefit a set few, right? But because it's a union, because it's a collective, not literally a union, but in medicine it's known that it's a fraternity, a sorority. It's known that it's a family because they got the same vision. This is the idea. But a lot goes on within that umbrella that is really harmful. But so I am not about anything political. I'm just out here to do what's best for the people, for them to be happy and healthy, which means I'm concerned about facts and reality. And this is why I'm going to play another video here, which is really about straight scientific. It's not scientific, it's statistical manipulation. And this is about relative and absolute risk reduction, specifically in the COVID vaccine, but really not just the COVID vaccine. This is from Canadian COVIDcarealliance.org. This is just going to show you how the numbers can get skewed, and something is presented as facts, but it's not. It's so misrepresented, it might as well be a lie. So I'll play that short video here.
Pfizer reported that its vaccine shows a 95% efficacy. That sounds like it protects you 95% of the time, right? But that's not actually what that number means. That 95% refers to the relative risk reduction, but it doesn't tell you how much your overall risk is reduced by vaccination. For that, we need absolute risk reduction. In the Pfizer trial, 8 out of 18,198 people who were given the vaccine developed COVID-19. In the unvaccinated placebo group, 162 people got it, which means that even without the vaccine, the risk of contracting COVID-19 was extremely low at 0.88%, which the vaccine then reduced to 0.04%. So the net benefit, or the absolute risk reduction that you're being offered with a Pfizer vaccine, is 0.84%. That 95% number, that refers to the relative difference between 0.88 and 0.04%. That's what they call 95% relative risk reduction. And relative risk reduction is well known to be a misleading number, which is why the FDA recommends using absolute risk reduction instead. Which begs the question, how many people would have chosen to take the COVID-19 vaccines had they understood that they offered less than 1% benefit?
And if you find yourself arguing one side against another, because that's what usually happens with these topics, vaccines, well, especially vaccines and autism, right? That's a big deal now. All of these real polarizing conversations. Keep in mind that both sides of that conversation may be set up to fail, which I think we don't think about very often. In other words, there's going to come a time where neither side is going to get what they want. And the result is going to be something that nobody wants. So nobody is actually happy. Imagine a hockey game being played, and it's not sudden death overtime. The game ends and both teams lose. And they're left there, you know. This is the direction that I see the world going in. Physically, psychologically, and socially. That the people we are fighting against, not only are we going to lose, they're going to lose too. Because we don't see the bigger picture here. Thank you for joining me on This Week in Tyranny and another attempt to convey the bigger picture to a bigger picture of an audience. So hopefully I didn't say anything offensive there. Hopefully I didn't bore you too much or kind of go too far into specifics and intricacies. I hope you share this, and I hope you join me next week on This Week in Tyranny. Thank you.